السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. We continue inshallah ta'ala with the fiqh of marriage from the book by Sheikh Ibn Uthaymeen rahimahullah. Last time we talked about the condition for marriage, and the next chapter, which is chapter number 4, the Sheikh rahimahullah talks about the characteristics of the woman that should a person get married to, and what are these qualities that a person would be looking for a potential wife. The Sheikh says that a nikah or marriage is intended for istimta', for people to enjoy what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala permitted for them, and to form a righteous family and a sound community. So this is what the marriage is for. So when people think it's just about family, no, it's also meant for the Muslim to enjoy what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala permitted for him, that he already created him with. And therefore, as he says, that the woman that a person should seek for marriage is the one that would establish these objectives, which is someone that has both physical and non-physical beauty. Physical and non-physical beauty. And the physical beauty, it's something that is relative. And that's why what is meant or what's mentioned in the text with regards to this physical quality is something called al-qabul. Al-qabul is the acceptance, is basically what a person would, or a man would accept what he sees or what he is seeking for as a wife in marriage, as far as the physical features. He should not, force himself to marry someone that is not like, physically. So the first one, which is the physical beauty or so, al-jamal al-hissi, it's basically how the physical appearance is, because the more the wife of a person is something that he likes to see, and her speech is something that he likes to hear, he will have comfort in listening to her speech and looking at her, and his heart will be pleased with that. And that is basically fulfilling what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in Surah Ar-Rum, verse number 21, وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ أَنْ خَلَقَ لَكُم مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُم مَّوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً. That from the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that He created from among yourselves wives for you to have sukoon, tranquility and peace and calmness with them, and He made between you mawaddatan wa rahmah, made between you loving and mercy. So this is one of the signs from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that the mawadda, or the love and mercy, should be present, and therefore this is one of the means to achieve it. And the second thing, which is the non-physical beauty, as he called it, al-jamal al-ma'nawi, the non-physical beauty, which is basically the perfection of one's deen, or the completion of one's deen and manners. So the more the woman is more religious and more of good manners, she is more to be beloved to oneself. And also for the outcome, for the end, for the long term of marriage, this is something that would sustain that long relationship. If she is righteous, following the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, she is obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, she will guard the rights of her husband, what's related to their relations, and that's why they're called the bed of the household, and his children, his wealth. She would help him to be obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If he forgets, she will remind him. If he's lazy, she would give him, encouragement. And if he is angry, she would please him. Someone that would seek the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by following what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran and what the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam mentioned in the Sunnah of the Prophet alayhi wasallam. When people are living together, especially in such a close relationship, if they don't have the mercy and the love towards one another, the patience and the forbearance and pardoning and forgiving, these types of things, if it's not there, relationship becomes impossible. And these types of qualities, it's not just in one's nature. It has to be based on righteousness and seeking the pleasure of Allah. So to be patient with one another, to put aside one's pride when it comes to sustaining and strengthening the relationship. And that's why the righteous woman is the one that would show love to her husband and respect him. She is always there for what is need to be done. And she does not go forward for something that needs to be, staying back, and vice versa. Because she is, the more the person is following the deen of Allah, the more wisdom that a person would have in dealing with things. And the Prophet ﷺ, as he mentioned the hadith, when he was asked ﷺ, أَيُّ النِّسَاءِ خَيْرٍ, who among the women are the best? And this is in Surah Abi Dawud and others. He said ﷺ, الَّتِي تَسُرُّهُ إِذَا نَظَرٍ, the one that whenever he sees, whenever he looks, she pleases him. وَتُطِيعُهُ إِذَا أَمَرٍ, and she is obedient to him if he commands. وَلَا تُخَالِفُهُ فِي نَفْسِهَا وَلَا مَالِهِ بِمَا كَرَهَ, and she does not do anything or differ in her own self or in his wealth with what he would dislike. That means she doesn't do anything in herself or in the wealth of her husband with something that he dislikes. And these are the qualities of the best women. And we have to be extremely careful, because the enemies of the deen of Allah, the enemies of the pure nature of human beings, are opposing these types of things and raising people to oppose these types of meanings, because they belittle family life. They don't want people to have a stable family life because of an evil plan that they have for them, which is the plan of Iblis, the plan of the shaitan. And therefore, for those who are raising their children, to raise the women in such a way, and the humbleness and the goodness. And of course, there are rights to be observed from the other side, from both men and women. But these are the qualities that of the best women when it comes to the relationship with her husband. When he looks at her, she is pleasing to him. That means she would take care of herself physically, not just once they get married or once there is feelings to do that, but she would continue to do that even if she's old in age. People, they tend after years and years of marriage just to be, acting without any formalities or so. There's no need to be formal, of course, but there are things to be observed. So both would beautify themselves to the eyes of their spouses. So and for the woman to be obedient to her husband, and not to do as the statement, وَلَا تُخَالِفُهُ فِي نَفْسِهَا وَلَا مَالِهِ بِمَا كَرَهَ. If he dislikes something in herself or with regards to dealing with his wealth, she would not differ against him in this. She would always follow what he likes. Also, the Prophet ﷺ said in this hadith, is reported by Imam Ahmad, not Sunan Abi Dawud. It's a second hadith that is recorded in Sunan Abi Dawud, that the Prophet ﷺ said, تزوجوا الودود الولود فإني مكاثر بكم الأنبياء أو قال الأمم. The Prophet ﷺ was addressing the men by saying, get married to al-wadud al-walud, two qualities. Al-wadud is the one that shows love. And one of the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is al-wadud, the most loving. So there's differences between someone loves someone else versus someone shows his love to someone else. right? So a wife might, she loves her husband, but she doesn't show that love to her husband. So the quality that is mentioned here is that she is wadud. I mean, she shows that love to her husband. And she's sincere about that. Al-walud, the one that gives birth. That is not something to be known before marriage, except that a person would see, for example, that this is something that is in her family, that they give birth to children and things like this. And then the Prophet ﷺ said, because I mukathirun bikum al-anbiya, I would basically be proud of the number of the believers in front of the prophets, in front of the nations. This ummah is going to be the biggest nation in the Day of Judgment. So the more there are believers, the more virtue there is. And this is one of the intentions for marriage. Not just to have one child or two children, whatever, to as much as a person can, and if the woman is able to sustain this and her ability is to have children, this is definitely something that is good. That's why I get married to the one that would give lots of children in birth and things like this. So the Sheikh says that if it's feasible for a person to establish these two things, if he has the means to look for someone that has the physical beauty and the inward beauty, as mentioned, with matters of deen and goodness and good qualities, this is the perfection and this is the happiness by the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And, it doesn't mean that this has to be that way. But this is what a person looks for. Everything is available when he is looking for. But then after marriage and a person finds that some of these qualities are missing, then he should also look at his own self, because there are also qualities that should be present in the man, and to be patient and to know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most wise. And this life is not about having perfection in it, but rather to be patient to fulfill the orders of Allah. And this is a test and a trial from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for people to be patient and so on. So this is when it comes before marriage, right? So that nobody would say, well, my wife does not have these types of things. Then the solution is not to divorce her, but rather to work on these matters and to be patient and to seek help from Allah. And if you're patient, maybe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you something else instead, like righteous offsprings or so. And of course, the most important thing is matters of deen. And on the other hand, there is the qualities of the men. And the Prophet ﷺ, when he mentioned in the hadith, إِذَا جَاءَكُمْ مَنْ تَرْضَوْنَ دِينَهُ وَخُلُقَهُ فَزَوِّجُوا إِلَّا تَفْعَلُوا تَكُنْ فِتْنَةٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَفَسَادٌ كَبِيرٌ. Two qualities. That if someone comes intended for marriage, you are pleased with his religion and his manners, then get him married. Otherwise, it becomes a fitna and a trial and a widespread corruption when people look for other things, so materialistic things and so on. So one's religion and one's manners, and the manners are mentioned specifically because to make it clear, because of course the manners are included in the religion. But some people might think the religion is the outside appearance of actions. Someone memorized the Quran, or someone, he looks like he prays in the masjid, things like this, which is, mashallah, great, and it's such a virtuous actions. But if his manners are bad, this can make the life of the wife extremely difficult. So to have both. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy. And this is the importance of raising children with proper adab and manners, because this is what's going to affect them in their relationships, in their marriage, and dealing with people. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide all of our children, inshallah. And when a person is sincere also, the truthfulness in one's heart, that why you are searching for a spouse, why do you want to get married? Is it because of this is how everybody does? Or this is something that you want to do it for the sake of Allah? And as you said, part of seeking the pleasure of Allah is to even fulfill one's desire. Fulfilling one's desire in the halal, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala permitted is a good deed, as mentioned in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. So when a man have relations with his wife, he gets rewards and she gets rewards for that. So therefore, looking or getting married to protect oneself, to protect one's chastity, to form a family, for the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to affect one's ibadah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is such a great intentions. And a person get rewards for that. And the amount of good deeds that a person is able to do when he's married is far more than the good deeds that he would do when he's single. The fact that for a man, for example, he's spending from his wealth on his family, this is the best type of charity. Different than when if he's just having his own self to spend on, but when you have wife, children, and he spends on them, every penny he spends, this is the best type of charity. Because the Prophet ﷺ commanded the people, "Ibda biman ta'ul," start with the one that depends on you. And that the best of charity is what a person spends on his family, حتى اللقمة أضعها في مراتي. Even for the morsel of food that he puts in the mouth of his wife. And this is just one benefit, and that's why for a husband, when he works and he earns and he spends on his family, such a blessing matter, and it seeking rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And therefore he has the responsibility of seeking that from halal sources and not to bring into his family haram. And the same thing when someone helps someone else to earn haram. When someone gives someone a bribery, for example, to get his matter done, or something that he needs to get done to make it easy for him to get done. It's not just about that you're bringing or you're doing an act of evil or haram to yourself, but you're also bringing this haram to a family, to children to eat from haram, for a wife to sustain her life from haram by having this man, for example, take money that is not permissible for him. Because this ummah is one ummah and one nation, and the same thing whether it's a Muslim or non-Muslim. So this is a huge subject of good deeds when a person gets when he gets married, and the same thing with even with kindness, with patience, with having these types of relationships and what comes with, and the same thing with the wife. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it easy with matters of ibadah. If she is taking care of her household and taking care of her husband, and as the qualities that we heard before, that would be equal to what the man has to do with regards to the obligations, going to the masjid, coming back from the masjid, going for even Hajj and Umrah, jihad fi sabilillah, these types of things. The men, they have to do more physical actions than the women as an obligation, of course. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it easy for the women, but with the condition that she is taking care of her household with goodness, with seeking rewards from Allah, and turning away from what the evil people, those who are ignorant about what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from them, turning away from their lifestyle and their way of doing things, rather to be humble and to be obedient to Allah, and and I always mention this example when women versus men, everything is for the family and for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Women would say, well, what did I achieve for myself? When you work in a place, in a company, and the credit is given to the owner of the company, or to the one that people see as the front of the image of something, they don't see those who are the backbone of the company, for example, that work hard for this product to come out. And they are sometimes more important than the image or the outside appearance of things. Or even like, for example, when people do whether it's haram or so, something that people see on a television or on a screen, they see a presenter, but they don't see the director, they don't see the cameraman, they don't see these types of people. And without these people, that presenter cannot present what he's presenting. And people overlook all of these other types of things when it's as important, if not even more important sometimes, than what's being presented. And they don't consider themselves that they didn't achieve anything in their life because the people don't know them. So the same thing with the work of a family. What the husband does is in the credit of the wife. And that's clearly stated in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. So his rewards that he gets for going to the salah, for the things that he earns and spends in halal, charity, everything that the husband does, it goes also in the balance of the good deed of the wife, because he's doing that and it's made easy for him as a result of having that relationship or having a wife, spouse that fears Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and make it easy for him to establish what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala permitted. We'll stop here inshallah ta'ala and continue next time. So this is the fourth chapter. The next class in a few minutes. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على محمد وصحبه وسلم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله.